Hello friends, we know very well that in object-oriented programming, encapsulation is one of a very popular feature. But how exactly encapsulation need to be implemented in context to Python? This particular program as well as the video will illustrate that in what way encapsulation in Python can be incorporated. And for that reason I have created one class by the name called bank account. As you can see over here, this class consists of certain number of methods as well as it has a constructor. On the left hand side we have given a call to this particular file. From account import the name of the class bank account. So I have created two different files. As you can see right over here, two files are there. The execution will start from the main app.py because here we have created the reference and eventually I'm giving a call to the constructor. But wait for a while. I will not start the execution immediately, rather I will explore you to this particular class, and while doing that I will show you how exactly encapsulation can be implemented. So let's get started. The very first thing is that we need to have a constructor, because when you are creating a reference you might pass some value like what I've done over here. I've given my name over here that gets stored inside the property called, the parameter called name, and an initial amount I've given that consider it as a balance, got 1000. So that means I'm not just giving a call to the constructor, at the same time I'm passing certain data in the form of parameters, and eventually the constructor will assign those to the properties of the class. But wait a second. We can understand that this is a regular property like self.name equals to name, because this name talks about the parameter and self is there. That means this is a property that can be availed by other method belonging to the same class. We are aware about this format. But what about this one? Well, did I write it as a style over here at the beginning, couple of underscore? Well, not exactly. That's the way you are supposed to define a private property. Yes, that means this is not private, so it's a public because it doesn't have underscore. Well, there are a couple of underscores are there, right? So when you are not writing underscore, if you write like this, that means you are creating a public property or public attribute. Well, on the other hand, if you're creating something which has got double underscore at the beginning, then that's create a private attribute, and that's where encapsulation starts. Why is it so? The reason is, if you are creating a private property, you cannot access directly, and that's what I've written right over here. So you can say private property will be used for data hiding, because the property which is private you cannot access directly by an object, which is possible in this case. So a reference variable can access the public property. There will be no problem in accessibility. But if I try to access like what I'm doing over here, this is my reference ACC account. If I'm trying to access this particular balance, it will not work. It will give an error. So that means data hiding is happening, and for that reason you create a private property. That is point number one in context encapsulation. So next time when someone asks you about encapsulation, you will start with the very first point, is that if I want to hide my data, like for example password or your PIN number, these are some property which are very valuable and you need to hide them, and for that reason you will declare them as private. And the way you do that, by providing underscore underscore. Not like Java, we have the keyword private in Java, but over here it will be demonstrated by double underscore. Okay, so that's what happened in case of constructor. Now what about the other method? Well, we have a method called getBalance, we have a method called deposit. So let's deposit something, right? So let me expand this. Yes, I expand. So over here you can see I created an instance variable. once the instance variable got created, the instance variable can now call the deposit method right over here, and it can pass 500 that got stored inside the amount. Remember, initially we passed 1000, and now we are passing another amount that is called 500, and we are just checking whether the amount is greater than 0. Yeah, in this case it is 0. And now we are incrementing the balance, which was a private property. Few minutes ago we saw that. So a private property can be accessible by public method, and that's what I've written over here, controlled access. So that means if you're creating a private property, you need to have a public method who can access the private property, and this method is public. Now you might be wondering, how come I know this is public? Just because I wrote the code, that's the reason? No, not at all. Because this method doesn't have underscore underscore at the beginning like what you are seeing right over here. So what is the heck is this? Well, this is a private method. How come? Because it starts with double underscore. Just like the way this was a private property because it started with double underscore, here's the same thing. It is going to be a private method because it starts with double underscore. Now you must be wondering, okay, if a private method is there, then how do I access that? Hang on, you will understand that. So what we saw right over here is that we give a call to the deposit, and deposit is a public method. It has got no underscore underscore, so there is no problem in invocation. It passed on the value 500, and 500 greater than 0, and I'm incrementing my private balance. So previously it was 1000, so 1000 plus 500, it's now going to have what? It's going to have 1500 as the current balance, and that's what I'm going to print right over here. Okay, got it? Great. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a call to withdraw. The withdraw is also a public method. How much I'm going to withdraw? I'm going to withdraw 300. So previously it was 1500, so from 1500 I'm going to withdraw 300, so it will be left with how much? 1200. So let's come to the withdraw part and let's see that what is happening. The amount which I want to withdraw, it should be less than the balance, which is again a private property, and there will be no problem because withdraw is a public method. So public method can access a private property without any problem, and after the withdraw has been done, the balance got reduced, and the reduced balance will be shown right over here. Okay, so that's how this particular withdraw function is working, which is making use of the private property, and withdraw is a public method. Okay, that's great. Now if I want to check what is the current balance, again we give a call to a new method called getBalance, which is also a public method, and it has got no problem to display the data that is there in my balance, which is exactly right now is how much? 1200. That's what is there. Okay, so far so good. Now what I'm going to do? Well, I was trying to access the private balance, which will not work. It will give me an error. And now I was trying to access my private method. That also will not work. It will give me an error. And that's what is saying, that if you want, you can hide the internal logic. That means you can write some functionalities which you don't want to be revealed so easily, and for writing those logic you can make use of a private method. So imagine this particular method is going to have some important functionality, so for that reason I made it underscore underscore, and hence it become a private method. Now let's see what is there inside this. Well, inside this what I'm doing is that I'm just deducting my balance, which is a private property, just by ₹10. So a few minutes ago we saw that the balance was 1200, and because of this 10 rupees subtraction is going to be 1190. Consider this 10 rupees deduction is like a bank charge. So a private method can also access a private property. So previously we saw a public method accessing private property, that is also valid. A private method accessing a private property, that is equally valid. But the problem is, how are you going to give a call to this particular method? Because if I'm trying to invoke the method like this way, like the way I did in other cases, it won't work. That is something which you have to keep it in mind. It's not going to work in case of private method, and that is how encapsulation is happening in the form of data hiding. So you would try to hide some important internal logic, business requirement inside the private method. Now how are we going to access? Well, in order to access the private method, you need to have a public method, and that public method will give a call to the private method. So here I've written a public method called process month end, and the functionality of this particular method is simply to give a call to this private method. So remember, if you're having a private method, you cannot directly call the private method by the help of a reference. In that case, you have to create a public method, and that public method internally will give a call to the private method, and eventually the work will be done, like what I did right over here. So I gave a call to this one, account.process underscore month end. The control comes over here, and eventually it gives a call to this private method, and because of that reason there is a deduction in the amount. It becomes 111190, so the balance got reduced. And now again we are going to give a call to the get balance, which is my public method, just to show you the current balance, and that balance is a private property, and that's how the thing works. So let's me show the execution now. Let's come to my main, and here it is. Let me run my open internal integrated terminal. Here are we, and now let me give a call to Python, and the file name is main app, because this is the one which I want to execute. I hit the enter, and now you're going to see the initial deposit was 500, as you can see right over here. Then there was a deduction of 300, that was because of this, and then the balance got reduced to 1200 until we give a call to the process end, where we have a deduction of rupees 10, and thereafter we got the final balance as 1190. I think that the concept of encapsulation is really crystal clear. So just remember, encapsulation can be in the form of a private property, encapsulation it can be in the form of a private method, but to access either of them we need public method as well. So public method can access private, public method can also access private property as well as private method, and that's how encapsulation is being implemented. So I believe that from this program the concept of encapsulating in Python is now crystal clear. In this way, in the upcoming videos we will be talking more about new features that will let you know. Okay, with that we come to an end of this particular video. Take care, bye bye.